What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel and to the next episode of the Overwatch League off-season recap. It's a bit hard to beat what happened last week, but there still was a bunch of excitement nonetheless. Big moves came in from the Justice, Defiant, and even more. Stick around to find out everything that has happened since Saturday, November 21st. Let's dive right into this thing. Starting with the Washington Justice, they made a statement signing with the addition of Fury to their roster, and it's just as I hoped they would do. The moment that the Justice signed Mag and declined the option of Janu, I was praying to the Overwatch gods that they would sign somebody like Fury. It made so much sense. First off, Fury is an instant upgrade over Janu. He's a better Sigma and Zarya player without a doubt, which instantly makes him a more versatile and reliable option throughout the various metas of a 20+ game season. Second of all, I am a firm believer that a rookie main tank prospect like Mag has a lot of pressure on him to perform, so he needs a reliable partner, and I think that Fury fits that role perfectly. He's a superstar who is going into his 4th season in the league. He'll provide some well-needed veteran guidance and leadership that will surely help Mag perform more up to the incredibly high expectations that people are setting on him. If Mag can play well, the Justice will surely have one of the best tank lines in the league. With this Fury pickup in mind, we officially have a little bit of a, I guess you could say, rough projection of their starting lineup. Mag, Fury, Decay, Tuba/Jerry depending on the meta, Closer, and Bebe. Now this is subject to change of course as they potentially could make more moves, but on paper this doesn't look too bad. As I mentioned in the previous episode, there are concerns in the back of my mind about their supports, but I am willing to give them a chance. I doubt they're ever going to be a top tier duo, but they still could get the job done. Also joining the Washington Justice is former Hangzhou Spark off-tank Rhea. Why the Justice would sign Rhea when they already have Fury is beyond me. Could they have just wanted a backup at this position? Maybe. Or perhaps he does have a use. After all, double off-tank metas could come up in the future. I'm happy to see Rhea get another chance, but man, I wish he did not have to settle for a potential bench role where his playtime is very situational. He was a pretty good player back in the day, but was hindered by a wrist injury this year, and he might not ever be the same because of it. Either that, or he might not have done all that well in tryouts. The good news though is that he will probably be happy on the Justice. Like Bebe, he too played on X6 Gaming, so he does have a connection with Coach Supreme. Clearly he likes his former players a lot, so that probably has a lot to do with why the Justice brought him on board. Hopefully they can get his career back on track. While we're on the topic of former Philly players starting the next chapter, let's talk about Sado and Heesu signing with the Toronto Defiant. Starting from the Sado perspective, it felt like this was the most likely destination, either Toronto or Florida, but Toronto more so because he gets to stay with Coach KDG. And I don't think anybody can blame Sado for this decision either. I mean, if I was him, I would probably do the same thing. Who wouldn't want to keep playing under the coach who helped you have the best season of your career as a pro? The stars are aligning perfectly. Sado is going to bring newfound life to this position. Toronto have never had a consistent main tank in their franchise's existence before, so this is going to feel real nice if you support this team. It could be a huge weight lifted off your shoulders potentially. You don't have to worry about Beast if you really don't like him because he's clearly just a bench guy / a developmental piece, but you did notice probably that I said Sado will potentially solve this problem. The reason I say that is because there's only so much that one man can do by himself. Toronto needs to round out their roster with some other solid pieces. They need their rookie support line in particular to live up to their potential. I'm not expecting them to play around Sado to the extent we saw in Philly, but we need to see a good imitation. I'm also looking for them to have whoever lines up next to Sado be serviceable. It wouldn't hurt to get another DPS or two as well. If they can do all of that, I think they could be golden. From Heesu's point of view, Toronto was a pretty likely landing spot as well, as he too thrived under KDG. It's very understandable. He maybe could have gone with Florida, New York, or maybe like Seoul as well, but why start off fresh when you have a better chance of being happy and advancing your career under Toronto? He's got a former Philly teammate and his coach there to guide him. Heesu played it safe. When you think about it, leaving Philly in general was for the best. Sure, you are taking the risk of playing for a team that may not be nearly as successful, but he also gets more playtime in return. Heesu in all likelihood is a guy they build this team around, and I think KDG will probably focus a lot of his game plans around him and Sado. He won't have to share the spotlight with Carpe anymore either. From now on, he is probably the main hit scan in charge. Sure, Logix is there, but you'd have to imagine he plays over him in a majority of the single hit scan metas. Oh, and for those of you who question why Logix is even there anymore, try to remember that this guy is still deadly when he's feeling it, not to mention that him and Heesu could work very well together. Heesu on the Asher Widow plus Logix on the Tracer sounds very nice. Or what about Heesu on the Sombra and Logix on the Sniper Hero? They have some potential there. But of course, Toronto still needs to round out that rotation. A projectile specialist and/or a flex is desperately needed. Another move made by Toronto that flies a bit under the radar is the addition of Michelle. It's a weird signing, but I don't hate it because Michelle used to be pretty darn good back in Season 2. The potential is still there in my opinion, and I think pairing him up with KDG and Sado could help him get back into that Season 2 form. If Michelle can go back in time, this might end up working out to Toronto's advantage. He has what it takes to be a reliable starter, and with him being stuck on Seoul's bench for 95% of this year, there's no way he was all that expensive. There could be a big payoff for a budget signing here. I like this mindset. My only concern though is that there was a reason why Seoul decided to keep him on the bench. He seriously might not have played all that well in scrims to get playtime, or maybe he got tilted and ended up in a poor mindset the entire season. There's definitely a risk factor involved with signing Michelle, especially if the Toronto Defiant do not intend to sign any other off-tanks. But again, the payoff could be big. The Toronto Defiant are very close to having a complete projected lineup for 2020. Like I said earlier, all they're really missing at this point is a flex or some type of projectile player. Toronto has made a lot of good decisions so far, and I'm hoping there's a few more to come before the end of the offseason. With all these Philly losses in mind, I'm starting to feel bad for their fans, so let's go over some news on their end that will hopefully cheer some of you guys up. So to compensate for the loss of Heesu, they signed Shockwave as their new secondary hit scan DPS. As of right now, most people are going to consider this a downgrade, which is understandable given Heesu's potential, but I think it's important to remember that Shockwave is a pretty promising player himself. He is capable of becoming something special in my opinion. He was easily the best player on Vancouver last year, and it's really not all that close. He made a lot of nice plays, and what people sometimes forget is that his presence was felt right from day one when they signed him. He helped them become a slightly more competitive team. The results won't exactly show it, but the gameplay definitely does. He's a very capable player, and you're implementing him into a system with far stronger support all around. Shockwave should at least be a little bit better than Season 3, I would say. There's no reason he wouldn't be able to succeed. The only thing stopping him probably is, well, himself. He has a chance to seriously develop and take that next step in his game. He can learn a lot playing for Philly. How much he's going to play is up in the air, but you'd have to assume he's present in the double hit scan metas at least. Him and Carpe might be solid. It's interesting that Philly are continuing to take this Western approach though. They were borderline full Korean by the end of this year, and now they're half and half. 9K must really like the idea of mixed rosters, and now we have to see if it's going to pay off. Next up is the Chengdu Hunters, picking up a rookie main support player who goes by the name of Nisha. For those who watch Contenders, you'll probably recognize him when I tell you that he used to be called Illusion. He recently changed his name after the most recent season of Contenders. If you don't know much about Nisha / Illusion, whatever you want to call him, he recently played main support for Bilibili Gaming. They finished the last 2 seasons of Chinese Contenders in 3rd place. He also played on the former Guangzhou Charge Academy team, the One Winner, and they won Contenders back in 2018. This man has winning experience under his belt, and for good reason. He's a highly impactful player on a position that does not get a lot of attention. He's a well-rounded player who can make plays on Lucio, Mercy, and Brig. He only turned 18 back in April, so now he finally gets his chance to show why Tier 2 supporters are so excited about him. He should also make for a good replacement over Yveltal, who showed inconsistencies throughout the 2020 season. The Chengdu Hunters made their second move of the week with the addition of Team CC main tank Gaga. Now this is a move that all Chengdu fans have been waiting for. He's a legit main tank prospect, and most would agree that he was probably the best main tank from that region without a doubt. He's got a Rhine, he's got a Wrecking Ball, but most importantly he has a Winston, the thing that Chengdu have been missing for 2 years now. They were literally playing Elsa on that character at one point this year. That's how bad their Winston situation was. Now they have somebody legit. Traditional Winston comps are finally going to be viable. They'll have an actual main tank player playing that character. I highly doubt he's going to share the same fate as A-Ting, by the way. He's far more talented, and Chengdu have RUI back at head coach, so there is reason to feel confident that he can succeed. The Hunters need some better consistency at the main tank position, and Gaga seems like the man for the job. But some of you may be asking, what does this mean for Among? Well, Chengdu have yet to say whether or not they picked up his option still. Your guess is as good as mine as to what's going to happen. Could Among be off the team, or is he going to stay and play more of a ball specialist role? Let me know what you think down in the comment section. If I was Chengdu, I would bring him back. Oftentimes this team has looked the best with Among on that wrecking ball. Plus he is easily the most popular player on this team, let's be honest. People love the Yada Chad. It's a common fact. Unless there really is no other option, I would look to bring him back. But wait, there's more. Chengdu also signed Farway, 1987, who is a flex support player out of Team CC. He used to go by 1987, but recently opted into a name change. Like with Gaga, 1987 is commonly regarded as the #1 player out of his position in China. I haven't really gotten a chance to seriously scout him, but the little I have seen so far has impressed me. At the very least, he should be at the level of Mali, but to be honest, his potential might be even greater. What really stands out with this prospect is the consistency he showcases across multiple heroes. Whether it be Baptiste, Zen, or Ana, he always makes his presence be felt. I love the frag potential too. He makes a lot of plays, and that's something that Chengdu often lacked in 2020. He's mechanically gifted in every way you can think of. He's a great prospect who seriously might dominate the competition alongside his new fellow rookie support. They could make for the most consistent support duo Chengdu have ever had. With me hyping up these new rookies a ton, you might be interested to look at them for yourself. But you also probably want to see some recent gameplay, and if that's the case, then boy do I have the perfect time for you to do so. You see, Chengdu announced that both Gaga and 1987 will be competing in this year's Overwatch Contenders Gauntlet being held in December. Definitely watch their games through the first 2 weeks of December to get an idea for yourself. But generally speaking, support tier 2. I'm going to try and catch some of the games myself. Anyway, back to some of the signings. We also have the Houston Outlaws making their first 2 moves since the Dante announcement. Signing number 1 is Happy. So much for my idea of a pure Western dream team. It looks like the Outlaws want to give a mixed roster another shot. And what better player to experiment with than Happy? He's an elite sniper who honestly had a very solid year all around for the Guangzhou Charge. I would say it was even a step up from his rookie season because his consistency was greatly improved. He was still as dominant as ever on the Widowmaker, like easily top 5 in the league in my opinion still. He's one of the best counter snipers in the game, no question, but I kind of liked what I saw out of him on the Hanzo, Ashe, McCree, and Tracer as well. Very strong statistical performances come out of all of those heroes for him. Happy has the potential to make Dante's life so much easier. I mean, how many times did we see Houston just beg for him to bail them out of trouble just because nobody else on the team could make a play? Linkser was great when he was feeling it and hitting his shots, but his inconsistencies put a lot of pressure on Dante to perform. Happy, in my opinion, is a fantastic replacement. So long as he doesn't revert to Season 2 form and the future Houston takes gives him room to maneuver, he should be a great addition to a team who desperately needed more firepower at their sniper position. Joining Happy on this new adventure is the Canadian flex support switching from one Texas team to another, Crimzo. Funny how he went to Houston and Repel went to Dallas. It's like they traded without even realizing it. So, my initial thoughts on this signing is that it makes sense for Houston. They love having a strong Western presence on their roster, and Crimzo seems like the type of guy to get along with your Dantes and Hydrations of the world. Was it the best move to make though? I'm not too sure. Technically he fills the void at flex support, but I would consider him to be a slight downgrade compared to Repel. They are comparable, but I thought Repel was slightly better in 2020. But maybe Dallas was just the wrong fit. We've seen a second chance do countless players a lot of good, and the same could apply for Crimzo. I've seen a lot of people get a little too upset about this decision, and it's kind of disappointing. I understand there are better options out there potentially, but Crimzo is genuinely not a bad player. He's not super good either, but I would call him like a B- type of player. For Western standards, he was one of the best options on the market. Even though the mental struggles of playing for a team like Dallas were there, he still put up some pretty decent numbers on the year. If Houston could put him in a better situation, then Crimzo might be a slightly improved player compared to Season 3. But of course, there's also a possibility he gets worse too. It really does depend on who the Houston Outlaws sign. Also reported this week is the Shanghai Dragons picking up Mali. I remember being very confused when I first heard about this before Shanghai made it clear to me that he was a good fit, and I was a little worried about some potential communication issues, I won't lie to you. It's nothing that can't be solved of course, but I always look back at the 2019 Spark in Stage 1 when we're looking at Chinese and Korean players intertwining. That was a rough time for the Spark, and it took time for them to get into stride and adjust as one collective unit. Plus, the Dragons do already have Izayaki, who played quite well throughout the 2020 season, so on paper this did feel like a very weird move. However, and Shanghai made this very clear, I think it's important that we all give this a shot before questioning it. At least that's what I'm gonna do. There's no way Shanghai would have signed him if he was incapable. There's just no way. They have title aspirations. That tells me that they believe Mali could help them achieve that goal. Plus, it's good to have Chinese representation on the roster, so it's a win-win. But back to the main theme of this pickup. So many fans want to know how he can fit in, and the Dragons answered the call with full transparency on their Twitter. According to them, Molly is very, very capable of calming in Korean. Not only has he learned callouts from Asian ladder over the years, but he already has experience being on a team with Korean players. Until recently, I completely forgot that his former contenders team, alexyOWL, had 3 Korean players on the roster. He has the advantage unlike Gushue back in the day. Also mentioned on Shanghai's Twitter is that Molly has a shot at being the starter. He's supposedly a great communicator that the Dragons have been looking for. Him and Izayaki will be competing during these initial scrims, so you never know what could happen. But even if he does lose the battle and he comes off the bench, you should expect to see him come in whenever double flex support metas become prevalent. Him and Izayaki don't just have to compete against each other. They seriously could be a really nice 1-2 punch. I'm looking forward to seeing what Molly can do. I would be willing to argue that many fans underrate him. Molly can hang in there with the best. He's shown the ability to keep up with your Shoes and Jonex of the world. The issue is that he played on a bad team, and that severely held him back. Getting placed into Shanghai's system could transform him into a serious powerhouse. One other announcement coming from the Shanghai Dragons is that they have mutually parted ways with Stand 1. Stand 1 was under contract for another year, so this goes to show you that he probably wanted a new opportunity, and who could blame him? After the early stages of the season, Fearless won the full-time starting job. Stand 1 came in here and there, but was mostly stuck on the bench. Now that Coach Moon is reunited with Fate, it became very clear that there was no way he was going to get any sort of promotion. But the thing is, when he played, he really wasn't that bad at all. Another team in need of a main tank may be willing to give him a shot. He might have to earn a starting spot against another main tank that could also sign with the same team, but it's worth it. It beats having a guaranteed spot on the bench with Shanghai, and if he can't find a new team, then there's always contenders. Either way, something tells me that this is not the last we've seen of Stand 1. And last, but certainly not least, the Seoul Dynasty made a heartfelt goodbye to Tobi. This is a very tough time to support Seoul, and for more reasons than one. I mean, first off, from the personnel viewpoint, Seoul now have a glaring hole at main support. Slime was already announced to not be returning in a previous week, so it's difficult to say what comes next. The good news, though, is that there happens to be a few veterans on the market. Animo, Sanguinar, Chara, and Chris are all available. I feel like all of these players have a more passive style though, so if the Dynasty were looking to stay aggressive at the main support position, then they're in a pretty difficult spot. But again, the good news if you're a Dynasty fan is there are options available for you. Hopefully they make the right choice because replacing Tobi is not going to be easy. Not only is he an above average player, but he is leaving behind some big time veteran guidance and leadership. The other reason this is so tough on Seoul fans is because they lost the final member of their original family. Tobi has been with this team since the Overwatch League's conception. He stayed loyal and worked as hard as he could to propel this franchise into greatness. I know for a fact that he probably still feels regrets, and he's going to for the rest of his playing days for never bringing home that promised championship. Also worth mentioning is that the Lunatic High roots within Seoul are officially dead. My Lunatic High fans who then became Seoul fans are probably really sad right now. Guys like Tobi, Jaehong, Miro, and Zumba are the reason you picked this team in 2020 to begin with, and now they're all gone. I'm sure it's going to feel strange for a lot of you, but instead of being upset, be thankful for what Tobi did. He stayed loyal and true to this team for 3 years, and it's not like his journey was smooth sailing. Seoul looks to replace him every step of the way, basically. In Season 1, his Mercy wasn't cutting it, so they decided to get Gambler. In Season 2, it was Jexe for shot calling, and in Season 3, they got Slime for aggression. But Tobi persevered through every single challenge. Every single year, Seoul tried to replace him, and every single year, he came back stronger than ever and reclaimed his spot in the starting lineup. And you know what? I would argue it made him a better player every step of the way. He improved so much these last few years, and I would argue this was the best year of his career in Season 3. It is truly admirable, like mad respect to Tobi. I'm sure he experienced all sorts of emotions throughout his journey on this team. But as much as he loves playing for Seoul and the fans, it's time that he thinks for himself for a change. Tobi probably wants to cement his legacy in Overwatch history by capping off his career with an Overwatch League title. He could become the first player ever to win a season of Apex, win a World Cup gold medal, and win an Overwatch League title. That would be a legendary achievement that him and him alone would possess. Given the extreme ups and downs of the Dynasty, he probably thinks he won't be able to pull that off playing for Seoul. He's given this team all he's had, but it's simply time to move on. He could also theoretically retire, I guess, or maybe just be looking for a way to reconnect with Jaehong. Time will tell. Good luck, Tobi. I hope you find what you're looking for. And that wraps up this episode of the Overwatch League offseason recap. So what do you think of Sado and Heesu joining the Toronto Defiant? What about Fury going to the Justice? And how about Tobi? Let me know down in the comment section. If you enjoyed the video, I would appreciate a lot if you could give it a like and subscribe to the channel if you're new. You can also hear all my other thoughts on the offseason through the playlist in the description. And as always, thanks so much for watching. I really do appreciate your support. And until next time, this is ATP, signing out. Peace.